Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Very Best Podcast, an interview show focused on our personal connections to the Pokemon franchise and what it means to us. With me today is award-winning disability reporter with bylines at IGN, Fanbyte, Wired, and many others, the still spirit, Grant Stoner. Welcome to the show, Grant.
All right, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been really cool talking to a bunch of people around the Pokemon community. We were both featured in that recent Kotaku article, which we'll get into later. What I like to do at the beginning of every show, we do a Fast Five, which is a set of 5 icebreaker questions that are designed to help us get into the groove of talking about Pokemon. Mind you, this isn't about you necessarily being right or wrong. There are right or wrong answers, but it's just about top of mind, and let's get through it. Once again, you do not know what these questions are, so we'll see how well you do. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Number 1. How many Pokemon generations launched on the Game Boy handhelds?
Are we including, like, the advance, like the SP and things, right?
Yes.
Okay. 3 generations.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. The first 3. Gen 1 and 2 twice via Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Number 2. True or false? Steelix has the highest base defense in the series.
I want to say false, if only because I think Stakataka has more.
It's actually true.
It
Tied
is
with
true.
Shuckle and Aggron at 230.
Oh my gosh, okay. Wow, my boy.
I had to double check with Gen 9 to see if it had changed, but nope, he's still reigning strong up there. Number 3, this is one I found interesting. What's the official name for someone from the Johto region?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea what that is. Wait, let me guess. Is it Joshin?
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was Joshin, but it's actually Jotonian, which is a mouthful.
Okay, I mean, it was close.
Yeah, close enough. Number 4, name the only Pokemon not named Onix that evolves via a metal coat.
Scyther.
Yep, Scyther into Caesar. Number 5, the final one. What's the worst mainline Pokemon game generation of all time?
Gen 3, easy.
And that one doesn't have a right or wrong answer. It's up to the guest, so
No,
correct.
that's right. That is right. That is correct. That is the only right answer.
That's funny. Next up, first steps. All of us remember our first time with the Pokemon franchise. I want to start off, Grant, with learning about how you learned about the Pokemon franchise. Can you share with me how that happened?
Yeah, I was a young lad in preschool, and my mom picked me up from the lesson of the day, and my brother had a pack of Pokemon cards with him, and my brother is 3 years older, right? So he was getting into things before me, like gaming and just general 90s pop culture before me, right? And being a little, like, 4-year-old, 3-year-old who sees their older brother have something, I was like, gimme, gimme. And my mom made him share one Pokemon card with me because obviously I didn't have my own pack. And he gave me a Machop. And I don't know if you remember the artwork of like the cards in the 90s where he's like holding a boulder above his head.
Oh,
And
yeah,
he has
yeah,
his
yeah.
like hand on his hip and he's just effortlessly lifting it. That was my first experience into the Pokemon series. And I loved that card. I would, take it with me everywhere for days and weeks. Um, I was so enamored with him. And then as I started becoming more, I guess, cognizant of the Pokemon series and franchise, I slowly started falling in love with more and more of the creatures. But my first experience was a single Machop trading card.
That's cool. It's probably the most like yoked Machop has ever looked too. He looked
Oh, it's
hefty in that
huge,
card
yeah.
art. Yeah.
Just a
Uh,
beefy boy.
So that's the way you were introduced to the Pokemon series. How much longer after that did you get into the games, and what was your first Pokemon game?
I was in kindergarten when I got the games. So I believe it was a year later after the cards, roughly.
Okay.
Um, and again, like I said, my brother was always ahead because he was 3 years older. So he already had the games. And he was playing Red version with his friend and trading and battling and things. And when I came home from kindergarten one day, my mom surprised me with Blue version. Um, and at that time, I was already enamored with like Onyx, for example. And I remember sitting down after school on the couch with my Game Boy, like asking my brother, like, how do I get Onyx? How do I get Onyx? And he kept telling me like you have to go to Rock Tunnel, and he was giving me all these little tips and tricks. Um, but I believe I was 5 years old, and it was definitely Pokemon Blue version. It was my first like game introduction.
I'm assuming, did you go with the cover athlete? Did you pick Squirtle as your starter, or did you have other choices that you wanted to do?
I genuinely cannot remember what my
Okay.
starter was because it's fluctuated. Like every time I play, um, some playthroughs I do Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle. Blastoise is one of my favorites. Like even today, so I'm sure it's had some like effect on me throughout the years where it's familiar to me. But I actually don't remember who my
That's fair,
starter
just playing
was.
so much until you get
Hmm.
all hazy. So we talked about Machop being your first introduction to the series. Was that the first non-starter you were obsessed with? Like, did you start Blue and were like, "How can I get Machop?" Or was it a different non-starter Pokemon that you fell in love with?
My I would say he was my first love at first until I discovered Onyx in the TV shows. Like especially Brock and his Onyx.
Uh huh.
And Onyx was my first true like I love this Pokemon. This is my Pokemon. He's gonna be like my like signature creature.
So how stoked were you when Gen 2 gets announced and you learn that he has like an evolution, a steel type evolution?
I did everything I could, every playthrough to somehow collect Steelix. If there isn't Onyx in a game, even to this day, even if I'm not using him per se, I will always catch it to get Steelix. Um, he is genuinely like my absolute favorite Pokemon of all time, and I do everything I can to always either have him or incorporate him into a team if it fits. But yeah,
Uh,
I was so thrilled.
are you, this is like a quick two-part question. One, are you like a collector? And two, do you happen to have like an Onyx or Steelix collection of plushies, trading cards, figurines, anything like that?
I'm not a collector in the sense of uh, physical merch, but
Uh
only
huh.
because they don't really have much of him. I feel like the Pokemon Company neglects Steelix and Onyx a little bit for favor of other Steel and Rock types. I do have a plush of Steelix. I do have a custom artwork behind me that my friends got me for my birthday, where it has Steelix, Machamp, and Lugia sort of like surrounding me as like a custom trainer. My Discord profile has Steelix, so I do have like Steelix, I guess, paraphernalia or like items, I guess,
Yeah.
right? But they don't really have much official merch, so
Yeah,
I
it's a
don't really
bummer.
have that of him.
Yeah. So we talked about you learning about Pokemon, your first game, first non-starter you loved. I wanted you to share with me. It could be from at any point in your life. Uh, you know, maybe your favorite, maybe not, but like a core Pokemon memory that you had in your life.
Oh my god, that's so. I don't know how to answer that, like, without giving you, I guess, my entire life story. I don't know. I would say for me, the most core Pokemon memory I have is I'm disabled. I have a neuromuscular disability called spinal muscular atrophy type 2. It progressively weakens your muscles over time. Um, and as such, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, because I'm a 94 kid, I know before the podcast you mentioned you're also a 90s kid. Um,
91.
91? Hey, you're the same age as my brother. Um, but I was in the hospital a lot. I was sick, which is very common with people with my disability, especially in their younger years. Um, I don't know why. I guess it's maybe because our immune systems are still developing and such, right? But regardless, I was in the hospital a lot growing up with two surgeries throughout my childhood, multiple cases of pneumonia and things like that, right? So the ICU every year for anywhere from two to 4 weeks became my home, and um, being stuck in bed in the hospital obviously isn't a fun experience. Um, and back then, I was able to hold my Game Boy um, because Nintendo systems at the time weren't like bulky, handhelds. They were pretty compact.
Yeah.
And I would just run Pokemon games at me. Um, and at first it was obviously blue version, and then it transitioned into silver, gold, crystal, ruby and sapphire, and so on. But I would just continuously play my favorites, especially silver version, because that's my favorite game of all time. Not just Pokemon game, but just favorite game, right? It has the most comfort to me, it has the most nostalgia to me, so I would just continuously play them, discover new teams, use Pokemon I've never used before, just to distract myself from being in the ICU. And I've done that so many times that I've probably beaten Silver and Soul Silver collectively, like over 50 times at this point in my life.
That
Because,
is impressive.
thank you. It's impressive and also very sad. But thank you. Um, uh, but it's just my comfort series. It's my comfort game. Every time, even now, if I'm not in the hospital, which, knock on wood, it's been almost 10 years since I've been in the hospital.
Awesome.
Um,
That's great to hear.
Thank you. I still play them if I need like a comfort, you know, moment in my life, right?
A dose of
Um,
serotonin.
yeah. Just get through the daily, you know, depressive news cycles and things like that, right?
The grind of
Um,
existence.
yeah, the the endless suffering that is life. Um,
Yeah.
but I would say that what Silver did for me as a child and what Pokemon does for me now as an adult, especially still Silver and Soul Silver, is it just gives me comfort. And that's all because of my experiences as a child in the hospital throughout all those years.
That's what makes the series special, right? Is that obviously we had two different childhoods between you and I, but we can come together and talk about this series. And despite the circumstances surrounding our enjoyment of the games, we both have a passion for it, which I think is pretty special all these years later. And I couldn't imagine what you had to go through, but at least it's nice to hear that you were able to lose yourself in a world like Pokemon and it could distract you from the stuff you had to deal with, which is awesome to hear. We actually have a question later on talking about that legendary 50 plus time
Yeah,
runs of you beating Silver and Soul Silver. So we'll get to that in a bit. I wanted to get to the Elite Four. which is a set of 4 quote unquote unique questions. Some of them are repeats because I find the answers from my guests pretty fun. The first question we have here is a little bit of a repeat, but the rest of them are kind of tailored towards you specifically. So we're going to start off with the first question here, which is up to your own interpretation, Grant. Who is the ugliest starter Pokemon?
Gosh, you sent me some of these questions like before previously, a few days ago, and I remember looking at that and be like, I have no idea because they're all so cute, right? Like,
There are a couple uggos. There are a
there's a
couple of them
couple
that are like a little rough.
okay. Maybe. Oh my gosh. I'm like going through my head right now of all of them. I gotta be honest, I don't. Maybe, Quaxley,
Okay.
because he has a little, like, pompadour thing.
So,
And it's like, you're not that cool.
yeah,
Like,
I
calm
guess
down.
remember that this isn't. You don't necessarily have to be the base forms either. It can be the middle evolutions, which oftentimes end up being the ugliest versions of the starter Pokemon.
Oh, well,
Like for
then
as
that
much as
changes
people,
things.
yeah. So as much as people love Charmander and Charizard, I think Charmeleon is pretty ugly.
I
um,
would say then that would completely change things. I would say it would have to be Crocolore.
oh, good call. Yeah,
Fuecoco's, uh,
middle.
yeah, middle evolution. I would say it just looks like they didn't know what they were trying to do with it. Because there was a very clear, like, you can see the path, right? What they were trying to do between all three of them. But then Crocolore is just kind of like, hi, I'm here.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the rare case in which a bipedal Pokemon becomes quadrupedal, and the middle one is like kind of lost in the sauce there a little bit. Yeah. I think it was just a fun little question. Obviously, I think every Pokemon is somebody's favorite, so shout out to the Crocolore stands out there. Somebody loves him and
There's
is
at least
mad.
one person.
Exactly, and is mad that we said something about him. Um, Coming up now, so this Kotaku article that Kenneth Shepard did celebrating the 30th Pokemon's 30th anniversary, you were included in it. I was luckily enough to be included in it, and in that article, you talked about what you mentioned earlier in your memory, your favorite core memory, which was that you beat Silver and Soul Silver 50 times. So I have to know, Grant, who is your perfect Johto region team of 6?
Lugia.
Okay.
Obviously, he's my number two favorite. You gotta have him. Lugia Typhlosion. Dragonite, Tyranitar, Gengar, and Blastoise.
Oh,
That
nice
team
mix of
is,
Kanto and Johto.
yeah, that team is only obtainable in Soul Silver, like fully. You can achieve it in the originals, but you have to do the time capsule trading between
Yeah.
Gen 1 and Gen 2. But that's like my main team, air quotes. It's a team that's like my favorite team I've ever built. Uh, um, I have it in every generation. I just keep bringing it up. Every time there's a new game, I'll transfer it from home into the newer games. Um, but I would say my comfort team would have to be Typhlosion, Victory Bell, Ampharos, Poliwrath, Gengar, Lugia.
Okay.
Um,
Poliwrath is a rare inclusion. You don't hear too many people using Poliwrath.
no, but my love of him is you get him almost immediately. Like, after the first gym, if not, I can't remember if you get the old rod before or after you beat Faulkner in Silver. I think you get it after you beat Faulkner. But yeah, you can get a Poliwag in Violet City right away. You can get a Bellsprout before Violet City. You can get a Mareep right after Violet. And I sort of like dubbed it the Elemental team
Okay.
because it has your fire, your electric, your water, your grass. Um, And that's sort of like if I just want like a really cool, comfortable, familiar team that I don't have to really plan, you can basically get four of your six right after the first gym.
Oh, cool, and keep them for the
Um,
long haul.
hmm it's something I've enjoyed. It's something I've used consistently when I've been in the hospital. The elemental team, especially if I'm not really feeling well. Like if I just want to play Pokemon just to escape, right? Then I'll just use the elemental team. If I have a little bit more like brain power and brain space, then I'll try and come up with a team or use the main team that is my favorite. But I would say the elemental team is probably the one I'm most comfortable with.
Do you ever evolve your Poliwrath into well, I guess it'd be the Poliwhirl into Politoed, or is it always Poliwrath?
Um, Polyrath because you have to trade
Oh, yeah.
for Polytoad, and at the time I just couldn't do that, right? So I tried to stick with Pokemon that were relatively trade free. Even though I have Gengar, I would never use him. I just have Haunter the whole time.
Well, how did you manage to get Steelix all the time then, right? Because he's trade, right, with a metal coat.
He was, so I would only get spirits after I came home from the
Oh, okay.
hospital. So I would just ask my brother to trade with me, or on the off chance if he would come to visit me, um, because he was busy with, school and things. Also, um, hospitals are scary, and he would talk to me every day on the phone, but you know, I didn't want to scare him by having him go into the hospital every day. But
Yeah.
if he would visit me, he would just bring his Game Boy and we would trade, or when I got home, he would just trade with me.
I'm so surprised that they haven't used the metal coat more for evolutions because it's a neat idea of whatever Pokemon it is, it becomes like a steel type, like it's Scyther and Caesar. There's the whole rumor that Genesect is Kabutops, right? I think that's what it is. Uh, so I wonder if they'll retroactively make it so it's like somehow you trade him with the metal coat to get a Genesect. It's an underutilized trading item. A number of them are that way, where I think they could use it a little bit more, so everything isn't so level based, and make it a little bit more creative. And maybe in the future, use the metal coat, but not have it be trade dependent. Maybe it's you
Mm-hmm.
level them up with a metal coat at night or during the day or something. You know how they do all those time based evolutions. Next up, who is a Pokemon without an evolution or pre-evolution that you wish had one?
I have two, if that's okay.
Oh, perfectly fine.
I think Pinsir. Uh, like I love what they did with Pinsir. They gave him a Mega Evolution, which is cool, right? But Pinsir sort of like falls off in a sense, where he's a very good Bud type, but there are just so many others that they keep adding Bud types that
Mm-hmm.
just do his job better. Um, Especially in like a competitive sense. So I would say Pincer, and I think it would be really cool to have like Sigilif from Gem 5
Okay.
or Sigilif. I think Sigilif. Um, I think that'd be cool if he got a pre-evolution, because I think he looks great as like a final concept, right? Like I don't think he needs an evolution, but I think he would uh, do really well with a pre-evolution. Um, just sort of like I don't know, like a little like maybe a ball with an eye and like a little rune symbol or something before it evolves into Sigilif.
Well, it's funny that he hasn't gotten love, but what is it, Runerigus?
Mm-hmm.
Got a regional variant, so it would be nice for Citric to get something. Would the Pinsir evolution be Steel Bug?
I would say bug fighting.
Bug fighting. Okay. I've noticed you have a trend. You like big like buff Pokemon. You have your Steelix, you have Machamp, you have even Lugia to some extent, and then Poliwrath. You have a type, Grant.
I like my big buff boys.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if that's like, subconscious. I'll ask my therapist about this later. If it's because like I'm disabled, so I can't be big and buff, so I tend to
Okay.
subconsciously go for the buff boys. I don't know if that's a thing, or if it's just I like the big buff boys.
They're
I don't
cool.
know. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
cool. They
Yeah.
punch things really hard. That's cool. I would say fighting type has always been probably one of my favorite types, even though I never use them. I just love fighting types as a concept.
He had a really cool Pokemon Jungle set card. Like when the original sets of
Mm-hmm.
cards came out, his foil version was super dope, which is funny because it isn't really equal to, like you said, his usage in the games. He's kind of like falls off pretty quickly. Um, I like that answer. I like Pinsir. I like Sigiglyph. I was Sigiglyph is not a Gen 1 Pokemon, so not a lot of people often bring it up in the evolution discussion. So it was nice to hear something a little bit out of the box. Our last question in the Elite Four, Grant. As a disabled gamer, can you talk to me about accessibility in relation to the Pokemon games in your own journey navigating it? Because this is something I've I have the privilege of I never and it sucks because I never think about accessibility in games quite often. And I love seeing stories from you and other journalists in the space of why some games fail to meet accessibility standards, why others do it really well. And I never have to think about it. And it's nice hearing from people learning about why this series is good with it, why it's bad with it, and you being somebody so close to the Pokemon series. And I'm imagining your relationship with the series has changed over time as your disability has changed. So, could you please explain to me the accessibility of Pokemon and how it's been navigating that yourself?
Yeah, of course. Um, Pokemon to this day, even now, as my disabilities progressed, from what it used to be when I was younger, it's always been the most accessible series for me because it's inherently designed for everyone to play, right?
Uh huh.
Especially children. And I know Pokemon fans get really upset when I say that, but at its core,
It's true.
Pokemon is a kid's game,
Yep.
and we've evolved. Yeah, haha, no pun intended.
Wink, wink.
We've evolved as kids into adults to continue to play the series, but they still design the games with a kid mindset first. And because of that, the core gameplay mechanics are relatively simple. All the way from, I would say, after Gen 6. To Gen 6 is sort of where they got away from like grid-based movement on the 3DS because you could use the little like thumbstick, right, to move. You could still use a D-pad to move, but you could also use the little thumbstick. So up until Gen 6, it was all grid-based movement, which doesn't really require um, much like precision or speed. Even though they did have like the mock bikes in Gen 3 and the bike in Gen 4, where there were some like little paths you had to quickly spin around to get like an item or something, right? You
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to do that, like it wasn't integral to the game. So those items could be skipped or missed if I wasn't physically able to move the D-pad as quickly. Um, but at its core, grid-based movement, all battles are turn-based, right? So you can take as much time as you need between moves. There's
Mm-hmm.
no countdown unless you're in like a competitive space, which if I wasn't feeling well, I just wouldn't do online battles, right? Because of that time crunch. There is the concept of you can build your team however you want. So you could come up with a competitive team. You could come up with like, I just like fire types. So, you only use fire types. You could literally just beat a game with your starter and the legendary, and that's it. There's no, I guess, as a weird comparison, but one that made sense in my head. There's no like Souls like intensity behind
Yeah.
developing your teams, right? You can literally do whatever you want, and the game doesn't punish you for it. Um, but as Pokemon's evolved, wink wink, throughout the years, it's sort of been trying to like redefine itself, and
Hmm.
that in turn has created um, anywhere from major to minor accessibility conflicts. The most egregious example is with the Let's Go games on the Switch, where that was actually the Let's Go games are the reason I'm a disability reporter in gaming today. It was my first freelance article I ever wrote for IGN in 2018, where the forced motion controls with the Let's Go games meant that it was the first ever mainline Pokemon game that I wasn't able to play.
Oh, that's a
And
bummer.
to this day, I've still never played either Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee because of the forced motion controls. And admittedly, I'm not really too bothered by it because, like, how many more Gen 1 games do we need? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but also, it was a very like terrifying prospect of the sense of like, is this the future of Pokemon, right? Like, is this what they're going to do from now on? Thankfully, they didn't. It was only in that game where it was that gimmick. Um, but as we've seen in like Legends, Arceus, and Legends, ZA, they've sort of transitioned from the traditional grid-based, turn-based systems to now, with ZA especially, everything is real time.
Active combat, yeah.
Yep, active combat, active catching, which I have at Arceus, but they increased it more with ZA, where now, with Arceus, you could still have turn-based battling and catching, with some of like the tougher Pokemon where you had to battle them to begin them. Whereas with ZA, everything is active all the time. And even though I beat both Arceus and ZA, it took me a long time. And it's the first time with the Pokemon series where I've had to take breaks when I play because it can
Okay.
be physically exhausting because you're always moving. Like you're never not able to just take your time with things and relax as you go.
Well, the boss battles, I couldn't even imagine. Those are stressful for me, and if you're constantly having to move and dodge, and yeah, it's crazy.
I'll never forget. Uh, what was it? Barbaracle? Is that how you say his name? Is that
Barbarical?
Barbaracle? Is that it?
That's how I say
Um,
it. Who knows?
like him, the giant rock guy with three heads.
Yeah.
Um, I died on him so many times because of his like movement pattern. And even though it's relatively simple, like once you see him do it once, you're like, okay, I know one to dodge, one's a roll, like whatever. But the fact that he would keep summoning barnacles and also be like rapidly moving throughout the arena, the mega barnacle fight was the toughest in the entire game. Because the thing that's upsetting to me is none of them are skill based. All of the bosses are just stamina checks, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
really need skill to fight them. You just need to outlast them. And with someone with a physical disability, with limited energy, those become nearly impossible.
Those become Elden Ring, Dark Souls boss fights. Yeah.
Which is
It's
funny
I'm
because I love the Souls games, right? Like I've beaten all of them except Sekiro. I never played Sekiro. But so I understand like stamina checks, right? Like I'm
uh-huh.
very familiar with them. But with Pokemon, it's never been a thing. Um, so it's made me excited about the future because it's exciting to have new play styles of Pokemon, but also very hesitant because if it keeps going this way, I don't know how much longer I'll last with the
Yeah.
series. which is a scary thought, but so far I'm able to manage just at a much slower pace than previously.
Well, I'm very happy you shared that with me because, you know, first of all, at least it's the side games and it's not the mainline series to some extent. At least there's a little bit of leeway there. And here's hoping Gen 10 Winds and Waves still has the turn-based combat, even if it is just an option that you can filter through. These type of conversations I like to have because, like we talked about before, when I see Pokemon Legends ZA or Arceus, I'm like, oh, a new and fun way to play through the games, but I don't see it through the lens of somebody who is disabled, and it creates barriers to be able to play something I enjoy, right? And I think that's something I personally need to be more cognizant of because I see it through my eyes and I'm like, oh, this is a fun new way to play a Pokemon game. Whereas with other people, it's like, oh, well, they created a barrier that some people might not be able to fully enjoy it the same way they have other games. So that's something I need to try to make sure to keep. As somebody who talks about video games all the time, I need to keep that in my thoughts when I see a new game that comes out and how it's going to impact not only me but other people with disabilities and other ways to approach video games. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate you actually like wanting to learn from it, right? Because a lot of people, especially in gaming, are very like, no, this just isn't for you. Too bad. Sorry. So
Yeah,
it's
and
refreshing
to
to
have the
have people.
conversation.
Yeah, yeah, genuinely.
Yeah, and it's tough because there is a whole artist versus art approach, right? And it's like, well, if they want something a certain way, this came up a lot with Elden Ring. I think it was Elden Ring and the accessibility features. And I was originally staunchly like, well, if they want to make that game that way, they shouldn't. And I think this was about difficulty settings. And I'm of the opinion of, well, yeah, they shouldn't have to make the game easier for people. There's nuance to that because providing accessibility to a game doesn't necessarily have anything to do with making it quote unquote easier. It's about making it accessible, right? Those are two different things. And I think that's something I had to come to learn of. No, the conversation isn't necessarily about making bosses easier to kill. It's about making the game approachable for people who may have a disability or another way of playing games to where they can experience it in the same way. Not easier, but just so they can experience it. So,
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
genuinely appreciate that. I would say, like I said earlier, I'm a huge Souls fan, right? Like I love those games. Um, and a lot of times with those conversations, uh, the artist versus intent conversations, right? A lot of times, people that have those beliefs, not saying that you get right, I'm saying like the really like the get good crowd, right?
Uh-huh.
The people who genuinely don't want anyone to experience these games. Um, Miyazaki himself, on numerous occasions, has actively advocated to play Souls games the best way for you, the player.
Yeah.
Um, whilst he's never going to add difficulty settings, which he said multiple times throughout interviews. Um, maybe not verbatim, right? But he's heavily hinted that he's never going to do that. He gives players options to make the games easier if you need, which sort of Pokemon does it in a way, right? Like if you look at Red and Blue, if you want the hard version, you pick Charmander, right? If you want the easy version, you pick Bulbasaur.
Yeah.
And Miyazaki, like the whole magic system in Elden Ring, you could obliterate a boss in like 10 seconds. And even Miyazaki himself in interviews has openly stated, he did an interview with Game Informer a few years ago with the release of Elden Ring's DLC, that he doesn't even play these games that way because he doesn't have time. Also,
Yeah.
he's not good at the games. The guy who made them isn't even good at them, and that's self admitted. So he plays magic because he knows he can just watch out your boss, blitz it in 10 seconds, and then continue.
Yeah.
And I wish more people or more players would understand that, like you said, right? Like, accessibility isn't easier, it's just making it so that as many people as possible can enjoy the experience.
Yeah, and I
And with, oh, I'm sorry,
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, with the case of like Souls games, right? That's like magic, clerics, summoning, summoning your friends. With Pokemon games, that's like legendaries, all starters, mono type challenges, or just even like I want the big beefy boys, right? Like if we limit ourselves, that's where we create the barriers for accessibility.
I totally agree, and I think oftentimes people become too insular in their worldview, and they think the world revolves around them, and it's like, oh, they're adding these options. Now I can't get the Souls game I want to play. No, it's right there. Just don't turn on those options. It's an option. It's in the word. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
yeah, I
my
hope
friend and
as time
I.
goes on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say my friend and I when we played Elden Ring, I was magic. He was like traditional sword and shield, right? And we had a rule for each other where if we died on a boss 3 times, I was allowed to nuke it with my magic. But we had to try it 3 times. And that's how we played it. And it was fine. And you know, we did a full playthrough. It was great. It was really fun. But we had that like rule for ourselves. Like, alright, after the third death, walk in there and shoot like a Azer comet on him and kill him in 10 seconds. And I would, and it was great.
But that's no different than somebody walking into a boss battle being like, I'm going to try this 3 times, and if I can't get it solo, I'm going to summon my companion, right? And I know some Souls purists would be like, well, it's not really defeating the boss if you defeat it alone. Go take a hike. Find a different game to
Yeah,
play.
I
It's
rolled
whatever.
credits. I got the achievements, I beat the game, I have nothing to prove. Like, I'm sorry
Exactly.
you're a masochist. Enjoy your life. Like,
Exactly. And there is some fun stuff to be had with the get good conversations when it's done in the right way. But yeah,
mm-hmm.
sometimes people take things too seriously. And that's not just a Souls thing or an accessibility thing. That's a human thing, unfortunately. Next up, let's get to the team building exercise. So I have my guest pick a fictional character. It could be from video games, books, film, television. We build the perfect Pokemon team for that chosen character. Focus on what Pokemon most fit the core of the character. So it could be vibes, personality, lore based, world based, whatever you see fit. Each of us will present 3 Pokemon, but I ask the guest and myself to come with at least 3 to 6 to safeguard to make sure we have 6 distinct total choices. The character that Grant picked is Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Now, I'm a fan of Kingdom Hearts, but I wouldn't say I'm a part of necessarily the fandom. I played 1, I played 2. I've yet to play any of the spin-offs, and I played through half of 3, and then something happened where I wasn't able to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Kingdom Hearts quite a bit, and I'm excited about the rumored, if it ever happens, one of those ethereal game rumors that there's going to be a remake coming at some point in the future, which would be pretty exciting. But we picked Sora. If you're unfamiliar, he's a protagonist from the Kingdom Hearts series, equal parts Final Fantasy, equal parts Disney, equal parts original IP. And I guess Grant, first off, why did you pick Sora? And give me your first selection for the team after you explain why.
Yeah, it's gonna be so ironic coming from the accessibility conversation we just had, right? Where Pokemon's the most accessible series for me, right? Kingdom Hearts is not at all. It's a button mash grind fest where you are constantly thrown at the wolves and hoping you live, right? And everyone's like, oh, it's Disney characters. How bad can it be? It's awful because you just fight boss after boss after boss. It's all stamina checks all the time, right? And I love
Mm-hmm.
it. It's my second favorite series of all time. I love Kingdom Hearts, which makes no sense considering the conversations we just had. But I love Kingdom Hearts. I grew up on it in elementary school, and then it was recommended to me by a friend in 5th grade. He's like, "Yeah, you have to try this game." So I went to the store, got Kingdom Hearts 1, became obsessed with it. And that's where it started. Ever since then, I've been a huge fan. Um, so for my first pick, it's kind of the most obvious, but it makes the most sense. Sora would have Klefki as one of his Pokemon, right? Because
Heck yeah.
he, he has a Keyblade. Why would he not use the Key Pokemon? It just makes the most sense.
I love that pick. That was originally on my list. It's a funny stand-in for the Keyblade representation, and like Sora, sneakily strong. The typing on Klefki, Steel Fairy, really good.
Mm-hmm.
I like that selection. Okay, so you picked Klefki. I think with my selection, uh, I love the relationship between Sora and Riku. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin. Gives me a lot of those vibes. And when I was thinking about this prompt, for some reason, the image that kept popping into my head, Grant, was Sora and Riku both starting off with a Charmander, right? And Riku not realizing that his was a shiny Charmander. So when they get older and their Pokemon evolve, if they ever have a showdown, it's Sora with his Charizard versus Riku with his black shiny Charizard. And that image just couldn't get out of my head. I thought it was such a cool thing to see. Probably some fan art out there exists of it. Everything exists on the internet. So yeah, just this image of Sora with his Charizard fighting Riku with his black Charizard. I couldn't get out of my head. So whether it's Charmander or Charizard, I guess we'll say for the sake of this Charmander, that's my first pick for Sora's team. I hope I did you out. I hope you're okay with the choice. Okay.
Oh no, I love it. I never even thought about it like that. But you're right, because I don't know how much of the lore you know
As
about
much as I
Kingdom
try to
Hearts.
understand, it's a
Okay,
lot.
yep. So basically, quick summary is Riku was meant to be the Keyblade user. So Riku was meant to be the hero, but Sora became the hero instead, and that's like several games of lore, which I'm not going to go into. But
We only have so
basically,
much time, Grant.
yeah, we only have yeah, you have like 3 weeks. But no, I love that pick because it kind of makes sense, right? Like Riku was supposed to be the hero, Sora was supposed to be or is the hero. So I like the whole like Riku is still the hero but just different.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that pick.
So we got Klefki, we got Charmander slash Charizard. Who is the third member of our team in your second pick?
I have. Okay, so I'm gonna say. I hope you don't pick this. Although if you do, it relates. So maybe hopefully you do pick it. For my first pick or second pick, Clefable.
You know what's crazy? I have Clefairy on my list. I'm
Do
excited to hear
you?
why. Yeah.
Um, so Clefable for two reasons. One, because the space motif, right?
Yep.
Because Sora travels through space in the dummy ships to get from planet to planet and world to world. But also like Clefable reminds me of Kyrie. It was Sora's like really best friend, but also like maybe Christian love interest question mark. Um, like they hint at it, but like they never really confirm it. And
Yeah.
Clefable reminds me of Kyrie because Clefable is pink and red. Kyrie's outfit, is, especially in Kingdom Hearts 3, is pink and red.
Very
Um,
feminine.
very feminine,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm choosing Clefable for A space B Kyrie.
So this is interesting. This isn't gonna be my pick, but I just want to mention this real quick because we're along the same lines. I picked Clefairy, and what I wrote is gift. I had this idea that it was gifted to him by Kyrie, right?
Oh my
Of like
god, we
maybe
are the same.
yeah, but this is the interesting thing that goes back to my Charizard point. Is that have you heard the whole theory about Clefable and Gengar?
Okay, wait, I'm not,
The whole theory that
yeah, I
Gengar
did,
is actually Clefable's shadow.
I did
So
say it, yep.
So yeah, in my idea, Kyrie gifts this Clefairy to Sora. He evolves it into Clefable, and Riku ends up having a Gengar. So it's like Sora's shadow, kind of, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it also Riku also having the connection to Kyrie with Gengar being attached to Clefable. That was my idea. So I'm glad we were on the same page. So Clefairy slash Clefable made it on either way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my next choice. So I was like, he has to have Pokemon that represent Goofy, Donald, and Mickey to some extent. So I'm just gonna do my first one, and then whatever other one I can end up landing on the team, I'll do so as well. So I went with Riolu evolving into Lucario as the Goofy stand-in. It's a bipedal
Okay.
canine. Lucario is known for being an empath. I think Goofy is very much an empath as well. So there, in terms of the vibes of who they are on the inside, I think fits. And correct me if I'm wrong. Goofy is like the brawler, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the traditional like knight RPG character pick, where Donald's the mage and
Yeah, outside of like an Aegislash or Excalibur, to find a knightly Pokemon like Lucario, who's an
mhm.
empath, he's loyal, he's a fighting type, steel fighting. So yeah, Riolu slash Lucario was my choice for the team. How did I do?
I think that's great. Honestly, I was racking my head or racking my brain the past few days trying to think of a dog Pokemon similar for Goofy representation, and I just completely skipped over Lucario. I don't know why, because it makes perfect sense. So I'm glad you put it in.
Yeah, I was looking through them and oh, Lucario fits so well, not only with him being a bipedal dog, but he embodies a lot of what Goofy embodies, from
Hmm.
at least what I remember from the series. So it's your choice, your final choice. Are you doing Donald Duck representation, Mickey Mouse representation, something entirely different?
Something entirely different, and I'll tell you why. Gengar.
Oh, okay, so he's gonna have Clefable and Gengar. I like it.
Because, like you mentioned, Gengar is, lore wise, supposed to be the Shadow favorite, right? Well, if you play Kingdom Hearts, Sora has this. So, in Kingdom Hearts lore, how much time do we have? Like 3 weeks? Um, in Kingdom Hearts lore, everyone has a Heartless and a Nobody. And Sora's Nobody is Roxas, which there's a reason why they don't look the same, which, again, we don't have 3 weeks. But, Roxas is Sora's Nobody. So I figured Gengar represents the Roxas side of Sora, where
I
that's
like
his
that.
nobody, but also there's the layer of, in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I believe 3 has this as well, if you use too many of your forms too much, like the forms where you can combine with Donald, Goofy, and use different Keyblades, different Keyblade arts,
Huh?
occasionally you'll turn into the heartless version of Sora, where he's
Oh
basically
wow.
just this like shadowy monster that doesn't use keyblades. He sort of like runs on all fours through the enemy, and he'll like attack with like claws, like a heartless, right? And Gengar sort of represents the Roxas nobody aspect, but also Sora whenever he succumbs to darkness and temporarily becomes a heartless.
I like that pick. And in another way too, if you see Clefable and Gengar in his team, it could be somewhat that he's carrying, like from my perspective as not a sideline fan of Kingdom Hearts. Clefable is his Kyrie representation, and Gengar is his Riku, who has his friends with him along
Mm-hmm.
the way, which is
Mm-hmm.
very Kingdom Hearts coded of having your friends with you. I
That's
like that
literally all
choice.
it is. It's just friendship the game.
Exactly. So out of I get the last pick, and this isn't the pick I'm making. I just want to mention it. The Mickey Mouse inclusion was easy. What's a mouse Pokemon that's the face of the franchise? Pikachu, right? But that one's
Mm-hmm.
boring. Good. If Kingdom Hearts went to the Pokemon world, Pikachu would be heavily involved. We all know it, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my pick is a misunderstood person, but they're very powerful and they become very powerful. For a long time before Final Fantasy 16, I think Donald Duck was canonically the strongest blue mage in Final Fantasy lore, which I think is
Yes.
really funny.
Yes,
Um,
he's the only character that uses Zeta Flare.
so I'm going with Psyduck. Now, misunderstood but powerful, right? Obviously in the anime, he always has a headache, but he also evolves into Golduck, who is pretty powerful in his own right. Maybe not in terms of the games and scaling, but I just like the idea of having. I was thinking of Quaxley, but Quaxley's final evolution, even though Quaxley vibes with Donald Duck, Quaquaval doesn't really vibe with Donald Duck.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured the Psyduck to Golduck kind of fits, and like I said, misunderstood, powerful. I also think the visual of Sora running around with Riolu and Psyduck is really cute. and a Charmander and a Clefairy and maybe a Ghastly. I think that's a cool team because we're talking about obviously the final forms of these Pokemon, but I
Hmm.
do think they fit. And having Klefki by his side, and if there were ever a collaboration, you could totally see Klefki getting a Keyblade evolution, right? And who
Hmm.
knows? Maybe in the future they give Klefki an evolution that's a giant key as an homage to Kingdom Hearts, which would be pretty cool. I like our team. So as it sits, we have Klefki, Charmander, Clefairy slash Clefable, Riolu slash Lucario, Gengar, and Psyduck as Sora's Pokemon team. I think we did a pretty good job. I think we hit multiple facets of not only Sora's relationship with his friends, but relationships with himself, like you talked about with the Nobody, and Roxas. I think we did a good job, Grant.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a very fitting team for Sora. Can I say one more Pokemon, which obviously we can't include, but I was
Oh, for
heavily
sure.
considering? And this is a deep cut. Vanillix,
Okay.
because of the sea salt ice cream,
Ooh, good
which
choice. Yeah.
Roxas loves, and then because that's his nobody, Sora then develops a love of sea salt ice cream. But I was
That'd
like,
be
that's too
cool.
niche. There's no, that's too niche. I can't do that. But
A regional variant that's like a little bit more teal blue color of Vanillish. Yeah, I like that. The deep cut. That's what I love about this too. Is like sometimes, like I said before, guests will bring a character that I'm heavily familiar with, like a Marvel superhero or something, or maybe a character from like Game of Thrones, and then people bring characters I'm totally unfamiliar with Doctor Who, or you, where I'm familiar with Sora, but not to the fandom level that you are.
mm-hmm.
So it's like a both sides of the coin type thing where I can bring partial understanding of the character to add picks, and then the person who's a deep fan of that character can bring the deep cuts but also more meaningful choices. So it's kind of a more well-rounded team in that way. It's a really fun segment that I enjoy doing for every episode.
No, this is great. I loved it. I loved actually sitting down and thinking like, okay, who would you actually use? It was a very fun exercise.
Next up, Forced Evolution. Grant, if you could change anything about the Pokemon franchise outside of fixing Let's Go to not have forced motion controls, obviously, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Uh, I don't know if like this is fixing per se, right? Because they may do this in a future game. I don't know. But like, I wish there were more games like Silver and Soul Silver in the sense of visiting multiple regions. Um,
Agree.
because like, you know, Silver and Soul Silver, you literally have two games in one essentially. Granted, Kanto is much shorter in Silver and Soul Silver. You can breeze through it. But the fact that you essentially get two games, and I sort of miss that aspect of Pokemon. And again, I don't know what they're cooking up in the future for different games or remakes or what have you. But the world of Pokemon is so vast. It's so vast. We have now 10 confirmed mainline regions. We have several spin off regions, like with the Colosseum and Gale Darkness games, the Aura region, right? Which is its own unique setting. We have all these different settings, and yet we only explore one at a time. And I feel like that makes the world so small compared to what it actually is. And I wish the Pokemon games, again, they may be doing this in the future, but I wish the Pokemon games would incorporate more regions into games in the future, rather than just be like, oh, you remember this Pokemon? It's from the Unova region, right? Like, I wish we would actually travel to these different regions within the same game.
I agree. One of my dreams is that you could do this, but the way it prevents level scaling is that kind of like what happens in the anime outside of Ash's Pikachu, where he kind of resets and sends all his Pokemon to Professor Oak or lets them go free or whatever.
Mhm.
that you would play through Kanto. When you finish and you can only use Kanto Pokemon, and then you would go to Johto, and you wouldn't be able to use any of your Kanto Pokemon there. And then by the time you beat the game, you could use whatever Pokemon you wanted, but they were region locked as you played through the narrative of the game.
Mhm.
Because, and it's a personal rule I have for myself where whenever a new gen comes out, I only use the new Pokemon just because I
Yep.
want
Same.
to personally have a reason to play the new game. It's a little bit of a RP role play, and it lets me learn the Pokemon. Um, I have enough opportunity to play the favorites, right? Fire Red, Leaf Green came to Switch too. So I like to use the new Pokemon, and that's what I love so much about Gen 5. For me personally, Soul Silver, Heart Gold are the best games in the series, and then it's Gen 5 for me, even though Gen 5 isn't even my favorite generation. But Black and White 2 have A, in my opinion, the best narrative overall for a Pokemon game, and
Yes.
B, the fact that they made you use that generation's Pokemon first I think helps that game a lot. And you have to be entrenched and immersed in that world. And you can't just bring in your Charmander and your Bulbasaur and your Gyarados and you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I wish they did more of that. Um I I wish I guess to your point, maybe the next time we return to the Kanto region, because we do it all the time, maybe it is a Kanto to Johto to Hoenn region type thing. And maybe they're just saving that grant for like the dream MMO, right? Where it's all the regions interconnected. I don't even know how that would work, but I agree. They've kind of dabbled with it a little bit. I don't know if you checked out the Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Blueberry Academy one.
Yes. It was very fun.
That that technically takes place in the Unova region, I believe.
Uh.
Technically,
Yes. I believe so.
yeah, but it's only tangentially related. And yeah, I wish they did more to your point. I think that's part of what makes Soul Silver Heart Gold so special is that you finish the base game, and as a kid, I didn't know about the Kanto part of the game. So when I finished the game, and then you could go to Kanto, I was like, what? And then you get to go there, and it's awesome. To your point, I do wish they would bring that back. I think it's something maybe they're saving for a special re-release or release of doing that as a way to get our dollar bills grant because all it is them giving us more reasons to give them their money. So
I
maybe
have
they're
so
just
much
holding
money.
off.
Just let me throw it at you, please. Just give me what I want, Pokemon. Just
Well,
that's
not
all I want.
anymore. You recently got into Magic the Gathering Warhammer, so I don't know how much extra money you have these
I
days.
always have let's go Pokemon money, which is not
Pokemon money.
much, not much at all. It's like 5 cents, but I always have just a little bit of Pokemon money. But yeah, you're right. I'm a freelance journalist that likes Magic and Warhammer, so I will be forever in debt to Hasbro and Games Workshop and Pokemon.
So this part of the show is called Return to Sender. We talked a lot about you. Is there any question, comment, concern about Pokemon that you would like to know from me and my relationship with it, or anything else? Any questions you got for me, Grant?
I have two actually. What is your favorite Pokemon generation?
Okay.
And was there ever a Pokemon game or generation that almost made you quit the series?
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so the favorite generation, the Gen 1 in me wants to say Kanto, but when I bring in everything, I think Gen 2 is a cheat code because and I don't know how specific you meant with the generation, if it was just the Pokédex or if it's everything included. Because so Gen 2 we got the best of both worlds in that we got Soul Silver, Heart Gold, and then you can play through Kanto in those games as well, which is a lot of my favorite Pokemon. Those are my favorite games in the series, and it has some of my favorite Pokemon of all time. I like Caesar. Some of my top 15 Pokemon. I like Caesar. I like Slowking a lot. I just like that generation quite a bit. Um, I would say in terms of just judging the games and the Pokédex, like I previously stated, Gen 5 would have a case for it. But
Mm-hmm.
all things considered, I'll go with Gen 2. And then the second part of your question was there a generation or game, right? That had me
Yes.
almost quit playing Pokemon. I think the least interested, and this probably goes for a lot of Pokemon fans, the least interested I was ever in this series was Gen 6. the
Oh,
Kalos region.
interesting.
I still to this day think that those are the quote unquote worst games for a myriad of reasons. I think the new Pokédex is too small. I don't think there was a lot of innovation with it. Uh, I it just there was a lot to be desired there. Also, it could have been just the point in my life in which those games came out. It wasn't harmonious to the rest of my life. You know what I mean? I can't put it all entirely on the game, but I would probably say the Kalos region. I think ZA has done a lot of goodwill for the Kalos region. Uh, and yeah, I'd probably say that. But there's never really been a point where I was fully out. There's been points where I was less interested, but it's always been a part of my DNA, and I've always made sure to. I've played through every generation game, um, and beat them. I'm a completionist in that way, for better or worse. I still have my living decks going. Yeah, so I don't think there's ever been a point where I've fallen out, but Kalos was the closest if I had to pick a point.
That's a really interesting choice. I it's so funny because Talos for me and my like friendship group and everything is the most divisive. Like
Okay.
I don't think there's ever anyone who's like, yeah, Talos is great, right? Like it's
Uh huh.
always either you love it or you hate it. And so it's really interesting you bring up Gen 6 and Talos as like your least favorite in the series. It was really cool to hear.
It did give us fairy type, which I love the fairy
It
type.
did. Yep.
It gave us Sylveon, who's cool. I think Noivern is a dope Pokemon, a giant dragon bat. It has some good stuff to it. It's not entirely bad, but I do think it was a series low point in terms of delivering on a like content lore inspiration level, whereas one could argue Scarlet and Violet on a performance level was the most disappointing we've had. Which, funny enough, I know people had plenty of issues with that game. I didn't experience one. I had obviously issues with texture loading in the distance, but I didn't have any like of the crazy bugs people had or the loading issues or any of that. Thankfully, knock on wood, I didn't experience any of that. So when I was playing the game and I went to the internet and they're like, "Oh, the performance issues aren't great," I was like, "Oh, understandable." And like, it's full of bugs. It's just riddled with them, and I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then I see all the videos. I'm like, "Oh, I got one of the good copies, I guess, quote unquote
Yeah.
good copies." So, did you happen to deal with any bugs in Scarlet and Violet at all?
Oh yeah, I had the constant. When you
Ooh,
would throw out your Pokemon, it would fall through the floor, right? Like the textures would just disappear. Um, but I will say when I upgraded to the Switch 2, I didn't like upgrade. I just started playing on the Switch 2, right? A lot of those drafter issues did disappear. They're still present. Like the other week, I was playing and my Pokemon still fell through the floor. Um, but they were severely lessened compared to like original Switch release.
that's good to hear. Well, that comes to the close of our show. Shout out once again to Grant Stoner for joining me. Please, Grant, let everyone know what you have going on, where they can find you, and share maybe some of your work people might be interested in.
Of course, I'm a disability reporter for the gaming industry. My articles cover accessibility and the disabled perspective, exploring what companies are doing right, what they're doing wrong, how the disabled community interacts with this medium. And also, as of the past, I would say 3 years to this point, I've sort of pivoted um, to doing more like intensive reporting, right? So holding individuals accountable to alleged behaviors, holding companies accountable toward alleged problematic behaviors. Because I fully believe that if we only highlight the positives of accessibility, we're hurting the disabled community. And sometimes you need to highlight the bad of the industry to ensure that we can have a safer future for different groups, especially disabled people. Um, so that's what I'm currently doing. Uh, you can find my work on IGN, Mothership, I have a story coming out for Mothership, which was a publication I just launched with Maddie Myers and Zoe Hannah um, from Polygon. Um, I have uh, a newsletter, which admittedly I'm a little bit falling behind with it, but I'm working on some new reports, which you can follow there. Um, yeah, if you're interested in keeping up my work, I have Blue Sky. I have various social media platforms where I post all my articles and all my updates on my stories.
And the link to Grant's Blue Sky will be in the YouTube description as well if you want to head down there and click on that if you're listening to this on YouTube. That's it for the show. Thank you once again, Grant, for joining me. Thank you out there for listening to the very best. Here's hoping you catch them all, or at the very least, work to become your very best. Goodbye.